all, welcome and thank you for the opportunity to be present here with you today and give support. So, I would love for you to put in the chat where you're calling in from. That's always a fun way to get to know each other. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because we're going to use some prompts here today and have that facilitate our time together. So, welcome, welcome. So, this is going to be every other Tuesday. Hey, it looks like Wendy's coming in. Yeah, good. Hey, Wendy, good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, we're going to be gathering every other Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock Pacific. And my intention here is really to support all of us as we step back out into our lives after having lived through an unprecedented time. It could be described in so many ways. And my intention really was to take an overview on what it is to expand into our lives and how we can have that support ourselves individually and those that are near and dear to us. So just to give you a little flow of how we're going to go through today, we're going to set our intention. We're going to assess where we are. We're going to put this aspect of expansion into a certain context. Hey, Wendy, and we're going to then apply it, and we're going to reflect on how that change happened, and then really set forward an affirmation as we go forward. So, so glad that you're here today. And I am recording this. You can always have access to it in the future. So let's start at the very beginning with this concept of expansion. You know, I feel like we've all been sort of in our caves in our inner world and we're stepping back out. So, in addition to putting in the chat, maybe where you're calling in from is why being on an expansion call is important and what it means to you. And so I'm kind of a why person. So when I know why I'm doing something, it really brings me into the present moment and knowing what it actually means to me. So whether you put it in the chat, I invite you to write it down for yourself, because when we make those declarations for ourselves, it gives us a framework and a structure as we go forward. So why is it important to visit this concept of expansion and what does it mean in this present moment? So I'm going to put it in a bigger context. First of all, is generally as human beings, we take care of what we value. So when we value something, we tend to cherish it, we attend to it, and we take care of it. I think you'd probably agree. And I would like to offer up, in fact, we ourselves are our greatest asset. And from that, everything pours forth, our connections, our relationships, our service to the world, our businesses, and so forth. So when I think of expansion, I'm bringing it very self-referential, like what do I need that gives me the support and presence and consciousness that will be most supportive. And so I love to do word analogies and find out what they mean and the meaning. So when we're reflecting on why is expansion important and what does it mean, I'd like to maybe have you chunk down a little bit, go from a bigger concept to something more specific. What would you like to expand in your life? And some other ways to think about expansion, right? Because that's an active verb, it's an action, right? Rather than a noun. So it's not a fixed state, it's a state of movement, right? It's a process. So, what would you like to have open up more in your life right now, unfold or increase? Another way to think about it is what would you like to add or move forward, advance, amplify, right? Boost. So, take a moment and check in with yourself and say, where am I? And we're going to go down into a little bit more detail, but what brought me here today? And what would I like to increase, supplement, amplify in my life right now? Awesome. Okay. So as you're holding those thoughts and concepts in your mind, I'd like to put it in a framework or a structure of the way we're going to do this is using the metaphor of our lives as a garden and that we have structure. That structure gives us form, and from that structure and form, we can have function. Now, I don't know about you, but me, when I think about expansion or taking action, I'm over in the goals and visions. I'm kind of picturing the flowers that I want to see growing in my garden of life. And then I know that my ability to move forward in those areas is definitely determined by this other side over here of what information or data I'm running, what's in my conscious and subconscious mind, or maybe even traumas, known and unknown, that might be affecting my nervous system, or we could say metaphorically, the weeds. So we know the flowers in the garden are going to grow to the extent that my weeds are attended to and addressed, because they have sort of a interpersonal relationship. But we both know that these two only grow when there's soil, right? So today I want to look at, when we think about expansion, I'm a former dancer, and we think about that expansion and movement, it all has to come from a strong foundation. And so I want to invite us to explore what we need in our foundation as we step back into our lives and we're expanding in the areas that mean something to us, right? That we value, and how to do that with ourselves first. So, growing requires that healthy soil. And I'm going to give an application today, after we assess where we are, of how to continue to build our foundation, right? Really feed our soil so our landscape is available for everything that we would like to grow. So I don't know about you. I hear this from family, from friends. Yeah, take care of yourself, right? Take care of yourself. And it's almost something that we just throw out there. We say it to ourselves, we say it to others. And I want to put that kind of concept into something more practical, of really like, how do we do that, right? And why do we take care of ourselves, right? Why do we tend our garden? And I think we'd all agree we do it so we can actually have those visions actualize. Our flowers do grow, and we can meet the goals that are important to us. So, what does it actually mean? And how is it done to take care of ourselves? And what I've come to realize is our minds tend to live in the past or the present, and everything happens in the present. And path, we live in the past, we tend to be in the future, and everything happens in the present, right? So when I think about being able to expand and actualize a goal, I need to come into my present moment awareness, my embodied self, and check in on how well has it been attended to, right? What kind of self-care am I doing, right? How am I taking care of myself? Because that is that landscape, and that is that soil. So I love to do before and after assessments. Anyone who works with me knows I'll kind of do like on a 0 to 10. In the psychotherapeutic world, this is called subjective units of distress, right? The SUDS number. So I'd like to take just a brief moment of reflection and say, your life force energy, right? Your spirit, how low or high does it feel right now in this present moment? You could do free association, you could visualize running your finger up that line or spectrum. Then check in with your mental, your ability to focus, attend to details, follow through. How is your mental body? Give it a 0 to 10 assessment, because we're going to come back to this at the end, right? And then check in with your emotional body, your feelings, 0 to 10. Where are you in this moment? And then a reflection into your physical body. Like, let's take a moment and assess it. How's my physical body, 0 to 10? How does it feel to be in my body? How's my body feeling? And we all have different references of how we go about that. For some, it's kinesthetic, it's how we feel. For some, it might be more visual, what something looks like. Or for others, it might be how it sounds, like what we're saying to ourselves, or the sounds or the communications we hear from others. So take a quick moment and give yourself an assessment. It's private, it's for you. And I always love these check ins, because then it lets me know how effective a technique is that I'm using for my self care to help me actualize my goals and really step into the expansion piece or the empowerment piece. Okay. So, taking a moment and really honoring yourself and seeing what that has to offer. So I talked about, we're setting an intention for expansion and we're assessing where we are. And now I want to put it in a context. And the context that I'm putting it in is our neural network. Everything is processed through our brains. And as some of you know, I'm kind of a brainiac and I've been studying so much brain research and how it is that we sustain our well-being, how we create resilience, and how we continue to grow and evolve both our own personal health and well-being and our relationships and the actualization of our visions and our goals. So let's think a minute about our brain. I always love to have a little brain here. Here's my half of a brain. Not a half wit, but a little bit of an application of a brain, right? And so we could say it's our neuro garden. And scientists tell us that our physical brains have 100 billion neurons. Like, how do we even wrap our head around that? With 5,000 connections. So 500 trillion microprocessors in this vast network. So many of you know I'm a coach for the Amen Clinics, Dr. Amen, and I've really loved studying the brain. I've had my brain scanned to see how my brain actually functions and really understanding the importance of we all have unique brains. We all have unique neural networks. And the more we become the most interesting subject in our world, understanding ourselves and how we work and what we need, then we can actualize our goals and visions and the expansion that we desire. So, all of these neural connections are responsible for what we call consciousness, about our memories, our emotional reactions, our behaviors, how we see the world, right? Our perceptions, and many, if not all, of our functions, right? And so they're responsible for constantly scanning and then how we react to a problem, or ideally, how we might respond. So I loved this little image. And so a lot of us have heard about the negativity bias. So our brains actually, for survival, have a built-in negativity bias. And so our brains hold on to this encoding of the negativity and kind of hardwires that in, or we could say it keeps growing the weeds. And these are little Velcro balls that are toys that kids have accidentally got in their hair. And I thought they were such a good representation that once something kind of gets hardwired or stuck, it's really difficult to get it out, or it keeps looping that. And I don't know about you, but I think that looks awfully painful for this little beloved. And I think many of us can relate to how painful it is when there's this negativity bias. It seems to be what keeps repeating. So, what's interesting in research is it's been proven that these fearful, negative, and hateful thoughts are kind of like Velcro. So, the neurons grab onto them, they encode them and solidify them in space. Also, research shows us that our brains are plastic, meaning they're flexible, they grow and evolve until the day we die. So, it's actually good news. And we also need to know how the system works. So, ironically enough, for survival, our brains take positive, grateful, and loving thoughts and treat them like Teflon, right? They just let them slide off. If we savor them, right? If we drink them in for at least 15 seconds or more, they start getting encoded in our neural network. So you think about it, why do we need to hold on to the positive? It's not a life or death situation where the negative is. That's why there's the negative bias. And so if we really want to start expanding and empowering ourselves, we need to start working on this negativity bias, knowing it's actually there as a default mode, and what we can do to kind of do course corrects throughout the day. So I don't know about you, but this last year has probably pushed on every part of our vulnerabilities and also pushed and pulled on our strengths. So I've talked to many folks and they have been overwhelmed. They've been so aware of the negativity that's out in the world, also maybe experiencing their own negativity or the negativity bias. And it's also pushed on trauma, like small traumas and big traumas that we may have remembrance of, or it's only a felt sense and we don't even have a remembrance of the story. So just to see that when we're in this, we have a suspicious and untrusting orientation in our perception. We are negative and pessimistic. We can reach for addictive behaviors to self soothe. There's a self sabotaging, a scattered or distracted quality. We can be demotivated, like our energy is drained out. That self-critic really gets loud. We can be very judgmental of ourselves or others, and we can become emotionally cut off. And so I'm looking at, we want to expand, right? We also have to acknowledge there's a negativity bias. We've all been under tremendous amount of pressure. And how can we begin to support and kind of biohack our neurobiology to really actualize the expansion that our hearts desire? So again, as I said, I've had my brain scanned up at the Amen Clinic, and brainhealthassessment.com is a free assessment from the Amen Clinic for 12 brain types. And you can go on there and kind of get an orientation a little bit about your brain, brainhealthassessment.com. And this was the scan that was showing blood flow to the brain. So when someone's in a grateful orientation, that's what's firing through their neural network, there's more blood flow. And they found when someone was focusing on negativity and hateful thoughts, there was a reduced blood flow, right? So this is a blood flow image rather than an electrical neural imprint. And so what this is implying is that our negativity bias, when we're stuck there, actually shuts down healthy brain function. And it's very difficult to have a healthy body, healthy mindset, and be able to expand in the ways we want to if our brains aren't supporting us in that, right? Like this is the most incredible computer that has ever been created. So to put this in another context is we're literally weaving the fabric of our lives based on how we're thinking, right? What our emotional states are, that we're kind of like, I always say, like tofu, we're marinating, right? Our brains actually have the consistency of soft tofu, right? So whatever we're marinating our brain in is really then becoming the fabric of our lives. So another way to look at that is our state, our emotions, right? Our thoughts are like the threads, and they get woven together and they create our traits. What we just say, this is just who I am, right? So it becomes the fabric of our lives, right? And then that fabric is really influencing all of our behaviors and all of our outcomes. The good news is this is all pliable. And I want to offer up some support today on how we can maybe work with that pliability. So to offset the negativity bias, I love to think about things in a simple way, like the ABCs of how to rewire our brain. So we know we need to absorb it, right, for at least 15 seconds, right? Absorb, right, all the beautiful things. We might say gratitude, right? Absorb the connections with ourselves, with nature, with our animals, with our children, with our friends, our spouse, our families, right? Our clients, and really absorb that, that sort of old adage, taking time to smell the roses, really letting our brains drink in the good, right? Really like watering that soil. And so, because this whole process of life is a verb, like I think Buckminster Fuller said, I am a verb, right? The being of me is a verb, it's an action, it's a process. So, we're wanting to be in the process of activating, and then we're being in that activation. And from that, we're in the process of choosing. Isn't that cool? It's actually kind of as simple as ABC. And I know all of you are wise and genius and connected and empowered. And my intention is for us to just keep watering our beautiful gardens, right? So we can keep actualizing what our hearts desire. So again, this is in that context of thinking about our foundation and landscape, right? And looking a little bit from a neural network and a brain perspective. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our vagus nerve and how to take care of our vagus nerve to support our expansion and support that going from a negativity bias into our true self. So the vagus nerve is part of the autonomic nervous system. It's responsible for what we call the parasympathetic, or we might say it's the rest and digest master control. And I'm so excited because this is one of my favorite things that I love to teach with clients, do in sessions, and I do with and for myself always throughout my day. So, just a little background on the vagus nerve. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. Stephen Porges' work on the polyvagal theory has really been fundamental in us understanding it. So, the vagus nerve is actually a bundle of nerve fibers that stretch from the brainstem So that's right here, right at the back at C1, right here where you tip yes, no, head forward. So this is the brain stem, right? We've all got one. And it goes all the way down through the colon to the pelvic floor, right? And it's known both as the wandering nerve because it wanders, but also as the wonder nerve because it's crucial into our well being. And I don't know about you, unless I feel good, I really don't want to expand into my world or be in social contact or even feel enough motivation to start actualizing my vision and goals. So when we start with the vagus nerve and its regulation, it's really fundamental. So these nerve fibers are they are stimulated because actually vagus nerve goes offline. So ironically, we're going to stimulate it. It then provides relaxation for the body, benefits us in many ways, and plays a huge role in our body mind connection. So, yeah, moving here. So, just a quick anatomical look at the vagus nerve, right? Again, it's here. We're going to be working with this upper part. It's the 10th cranial nerve. It comes into the face and it supplies that parasympathetic information, visceral, which means organs, respiratory, digestion, urinary tract. It controls our heart rate, how our bronchial system constricts and dilates, and also our digestive system. So, if we're having digestive issues, if we're having respiratory issues, all of these things are actually controlled and governed by the vagus nerve. And it's so simple to take care of this beloved and really bring it online in the best way. Here's another way to see the vagus nerve. So again, it's a 10th cranial nerve and it comes all the way down. It has an upper portion and a lower portion just to kind of give another visual for those of us that are visual. And then we're going to jump into the exercises in just a minute. I just want to give you one more reference here. Another way to visualize that vagus nerve, right? It controls things in our body automatically, right? So it's like once we stimulate it and get it working for us, it does its job. We don't have to keep checking in on it, right? So it helps our breath and communicates with our lungs, right? It controls our heart rate, keeps our blood pressure level stable. This is really great. It decreases inflammation. So many of us have inflammatory conditions, and the more we stimulate the vagus nerve, our inflammatory response will go down. It activates immune response. In the world that we're living in, we want to have the highest immune response. The more we stimulate our vagus nerve, get it running automatically, it enhances that. It allows our gut and our brain to communicate. So both does it enhance a healthy gut biome, but it also really helps us tune into a greater sense of intuition, right? That gut feeling, because the gut actually has a brain. And it helps us relax, stay in a calm state, and helps us deal with stress and anxiety. So, when I think about our current reality, what we've been living through, and where we want to go, expanding into our lives, the vagus nerve is such a beloved to support us in this journey. And I really want us to get to know it and how to work with it in a very simple way. I think most of you know I like simple, effective techniques that can happen anywhere, anytime, any place. So, how can we do this? This is step one, right? I'm really into things that are practical. So, how can we do it? Because this is a cranial nerve, it's coming here from C1 out of the base of the head, it's wrapping around. If we start gently stroking down our throat, I'm going to invite you to do that. We're stimulating the vagus nerve, right? Stroking down. And have you ever noticed when you're stressed, sometimes you might naturally do this? You might just find you're rubbing one side of your neck. Your intelligence system already knows it needs to activate the vagus nerve. Now, while you're doing this, also a little movement, ear to shoulder, can also help activate the vagus nerve, right? Since we know it comes out here, yes, no movements, yes movements, and no movements are also part of supporting that vagus nerve. Most people, I do so much body work, I've been doing it for 32 years, are really impacted here, right? With so much tension here at that suboccipital muscles, right? Coming down through the back, even through the front of the cervical muscles, this big sternocleidomastoid muscle. So as we stroke down here, it's activating the nerve, then the nerve automatically is creating the relaxation response, right? Rather than digging in and pushing and pulling on the tissue, the activation of the vagus nerve starts to take care of that for us. Now, the things that we're looking for are, oh, I'm starting to yawn naturally, or I'm noticing I'm starting to sigh, or I'm getting some belly gurgles, or I'm finding I'm naturally wanting to swallow. Okay. Now we're moving on to another way to activate the vagus nerve. So we can rub here right behind our ear. Some people like to tap instead of rub. Remember, this is a stimulation process. So we're stimulating or activating the vagus nerve. So it's fun sometimes to do one side and then the other. And you might notice one side actually activates that nerve a little bit more than the other. So you can explore rubbing or tapping behind your ear. You can let that flow into a gentle massage or pulling on your ears because of the way that that vagus nerve, being a cranial nerve, comes through that location here. You can try one side and see if one side gives you more of that relaxation response. And you might notice the fascia and the tissue around the nerves that connect the nerve to our head can be pretty tight and tender. And so you can massage, you can stretch up, stretch back. I sometimes like to even employ like a rotation forward and really start to loosen up the fascia. But again, our primary intention is to be activating that vagus nerve, stimulating it so it comes online and does automatically the rest and digest, right? So, number three, we have an ear canal. So, I want you to think about your fingernail facing forward and you gently rest it in your ear canal and push back against that ridge. So, you can gently push back against it and rub up and down. And for some of you that might have some massage tools, this is a lovely rose quartz massage tool. You can always use something that's round and soft and push against that edge. I think sometimes our fingers are most available to us. So it's not so much going into the ear canal as it's resting at the ear canal and pushing back. And either going in little circles or going up and down. And again, I'd like you to pay attention to whether you're swallowing, your breath is changing, your diaphragm is relaxing, or there's a yawn. So exploring both sides and really feeling that relaxation response, right? This is bringing us into present, relaxed, conscious awareness, really bringing the best part of us online. Okay. We're going to go to step number 4. So if your finger's in your ear canal, I want you to gently float up over the first little ridge and drop in. There's a little indent. So ear canal, float up over the ridge and drop into that indent. Okay. So again, if you have a little massage tool, I can drop into that indent and do little circles, gentle little circles. You can use your finger. What I love about a lot of our pens nowadays, they have soft rubber ends on our tablets. So if you have a pen with a soft rubber end, you can gently rotate in and through that. You know, we never put Q-tips in our ear, but if you had a Q-tip, you could also come into that spot, right? And it's called the Simba. And so you might notice, I love that Wendy's like, oh yeah, I'm starting to like check in with some of my neuromuscular tension, right? What that is to massage that, okay? So these are 4 points: rubbing and tapping, pulling on the ears, coming into that ear canal and gently coming back, floating up over the first ridge into the Simba, right? So I'm going to take a couple more minutes and give you some other applications, but I needed to put it in the context of what we're working with our nervous system, the negativity bias, and the importance of our vagus nerve and how to stimulate it. So another way you can do this is to gently give a little pressure on your eyeballs or the little ridge above your eyes, because we have so much neurological tension through the optic nerve back into the brain stem. And I did post on my YouTube channel a Virgin's exercise that exercises those muscles for a relaxation response. So sometimes gently giving a little pressure, because again, this is a cranial nerve. And this one is really fun. Anytime we hum or whistle a song or a tone, and it doesn't have to be loud, the vibration is activating the vagus nerve. So, and you can pick your pitch. All of that is activating the vagus nerve. And I have found I instinctively hum and whistle as like a neuroregulation. And little did I know it was activating the vagus nerve. And so, what I think is fun is that we can actually put it all together, right? We could hum, we could sing a little song, sunny side of the street, right? Mm-hmm. So, we could just be humming, we could be whistling, we could be singing a little song in the shower, we could be massaging behind our ears, we could be rubbing our ears, right? We could be here, we could be. Just really activating the vagus nerve and getting the instant relaxation response. And I'm going to add one more, and in future calls, we're going to go more into where we look affects how we feel. But another way we can activate that relaxation response is noticing if we look in a certain direction, right, left, up, down, that there might be a place where we feel ourselves kind of go, ah. So even as you were massaging your ears and you started to experience this activation of the vagus nerve and the relaxation response, did you naturally start to look somewhere? And I'll talk more about this in other calls, that these are like GPS coordinates in your neural network that provide a calm, ease, and flow state. So I'm going to invite you to kind of explore these over the next couple of weeks. And one thing we can't do here together, but this also activates the vagus nerve, is when you splash cold water on your face and you gargle, particularly if you gargle in the shower, you don't have to worry about water flowing anywhere, it activates the vagus nerve. So you can imagine waking up in the morning, doing a little face massage, maybe a little bit of humming, notice where your gaze goes, gets up, splash some cold water on your face, gargle in the shower. You've activated your vagus nerve for the day, and it's going to have you more neurobiologically regulated to then feel like social engagement and be able to step into your day. So just take a quick minute as we finish up here and see how are you experiencing yourself differently, right? Is your life force energy, has it changed? Has your mental orientation to yourself or your day changed? How are you feeling? Or how does your body feel? Before and afters are a really great way to check in and see, where was I? Where am I now? Okay. And so as you do that, how do I feel? How does my world look? Like, what am I saying to myself? How has it changed? And maybe even write in the chat or write down to yourself, what am I going to apply in the next 2 weeks of what I got to revisit and remember today that will really help me in my desired goal of expansion, where we started, right, at the beginning of the day. And so revisiting that, I believe that we take care of what we value. And when we grow our capacity for good, and that we're really experiencing the goodness within ourselves, we bring the best of ourselves. And this is a lovely affirmation from one of my beloved mentors. I choose to choose the me I'll be. I sculpt my own neurology. I choose to bring the best of me to all I do and all I see. And so these are great ideas and concepts, and they happen through neuroregulation, right? They happen through being able to balance out our autonomic nervous system, bringing that calm, focus, present awareness through the parasympathetic nervous system to our world. And so, just to give you a little idea, I do so many budding havening work. I teach, I do neurofeedback, I teach people how to create heart rate variability, and all of it super technical. And more importantly, I'm here to support you in your precious valuing of yourself and taking the technical and bringing it into a really simple, daily, practical application. So we can support ourselves, we can support our beloveds, we can support our community and move forward. So I'm going to stop the share and say again, it's so good to see you. And I'm happy to stay on if there's any questions, any comments. You don't have to come on camera, you're welcome to. I want you to know that I'm here available as a resource. And I thought a great way to share little nuggets of information and then getting a couple weeks to apply them was a really fun way to do it. Hey there, Elena, good to see you. Hey, Warren, I saw you pop in, and Sophie, always good to see you. And I'm not sure who this other 858 number is, but hello, welcome. And so anybody have anything they'd like to share or a question that they might have?
I just appreciate the simplicity of it. And I think that's why I love working with you so much, because it's so simple and it's something we can just do in our everyday life. And it was also interesting to me how much of that I do without even knowing. So that was really cool. Thank you.
Ah, you're welcome. Isn't it so affirming to actually realize that there's an intelligence in us that's already reaching for this? Right. And so
Yeah,
we're doing it unconsciously. And then we get to bring it into conscious awareness and really like amplify it and like grow that garden. And then we have beautiful flowers to share with others too. Right. And we can empower them. And so it's like the gift that keeps on giving, or I kind of always call it like the never ending love story. So of course, you're already doing it, and I hope that this is just a validation and a confirmation for you. Yeah,
absolutely. And you said you were going to share the recording, because I would love for my son to watch this.
yeah. I'm recording it, and then I'm gonna decide where I'm gonna post it, which platform. So once I do,
Okay,
I'll let you know.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sharon, thank you so much. I am looking at this as a benefit, not only to myself, but my clients. I
Awesome.
have clients that could so use this, and I so appreciate your help and see if I can get them to join in.
Oh my gosh, right. And it can be super fun, right? Like playful, like, hey, let's try something. Or, sometimes people are so overwhelmed, right? And so neurologically dysregulated that they can't handle the psychoeducation, right? Or the neurobiological education on the front loading. But we can kind of offer up it as a moment of arriving, like an arriving exercise. Let's take a moment and just arrive. And if you do it together, and just have kind of notice and then have them start to see simple prompts like a swallow or a yawn is meaning that it's working, right?
Indeed.
And just, I think there's fun ways to do arriving exercises. And I'm so somatically based because actually our bodies have the lived experience, right? Our bodies are what carry us through life. And we're doing a bottom up approach, right? We're getting through the brainstem and the limbic brain rather than talk therapy and prefrontal cortex trying to talk ourselves into something. We're actually like neurologically hacking the intelligence system, right? And when people maybe first have the experience and then they understand it. So I'm so excited for you, Wendy, because it actually is super simple and it happens really quick. Mhm.
And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great to have you. Look forward to seeing you more in the
Thank
future.
you.
Wendy. Yeah. Yay. Hey, Elena. Good to see you. It was fun. it's just fun to hear people's feedback, so get back to me with texts and, chats and follow-ups and other things that maybe you're looking for. And my intention has always been to take more complex concepts and distill them down into like little applicable nuggets, that we can use and then share in our lives. So anyone else have any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll complete for today, but I'm available to hang out and be supportive. Well, joy in your day and week, and as we continue to expand into our lives. And let me know, are there resources or things that you're looking for? And I will kind of continue on this progression, how to continue to support our vagus nerve and how to build that neural garden, and then how that goes into addressing maybe traumas and old beliefs. And then also how that helps us really fulfill our goals and intentions. So, all right. Blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I look
Blessing.
forward to seeing you soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye.